Beg to move that this House do now adjourn.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. Sally Jameson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I am grateful for the opportunity to make the case for repairs and refurbishment to Doncaster Royal Infirmary in this place. This is not the first time I have raised this issue here, such is the importance to my constituents. Doncaster Royal Infirmary is at the heart of our community in Doncaster, and for many of us, including myself, it is where we were born and rely on during some of the most difficult and painful times of our lives. It is with great sadness that I come to this place to say that after consistent underfunding, our hospital is in dire need of repair. I'd like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to the NHS staff who dedicate their careers to the care of the patients at the hospital. When I worked as a prison officer, I spent many hours on escorts at DRI and saw for myself the commitment of the staff there. We live in a time where pressures on the NHS are immense, and staff across the country are facing unbearable conditions as they try and support patients in a system which desperately needs reform. I am pleased that this government is committed to enacting change within our NHS for the benefit of both patients and the staff who treat them. In Doncaster, our dedicated NHS staff face an added pressure. Doncaster Royal Infirmary faces one of the highest repair backlogs in the country. The East Ward Tower Block, which houses some of the most vulnerable patients, faces critical infrastructure risks and safety concerns, and therefore is at the very top of the Doncaster and Bassetlaw Teaching Hospital's list of priorities. Other areas with the backlog repairs, including operating theatres, the Department of Critical Care and the Women and Children's Hospital.
On that point, will you give way?
I'll give way.
Thank you to my honourable friend for giving way. Now, as my honourable friend will know, in April 2021, a leak came through the Women's Hospital at Doncaster Royal Infirmary. That water then flooded that area, went into the electrical systems, a fire broke out and some 60 patients were impacted and evacuated. That included premature babies as well. Now, of course, thanks to the efforts of the amazing staff, as you've already met, as my honourable friend has mentioned, at the hospital, they managed to ensure that no one was hurt, but the damage was absolutely substantial and it impacted larger parts of the hospital too. Does my honourable friend agree with me that we need to learn from such incidents, and it makes absolute sound financial sense and safety sense to proactively manage repairs and do the maintenance that's required?
My honourable friend is absolutely right, and I think that particular incident showcased how desperate the situation is, and it is absolutely testament to the staff and the team at the Trust that no one was hurt and the repair works that needed to be done immediately then happened. Other areas where the backlog continues is the operating theatres, and according to the DRI refurbishment plan, the operating theatres at the hospital do not meet the modern standards in terms of space, and across these parts of the hospitals there remains infrastructure which dates back to the 90s.
I beg to move that this House do now adjourn.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. Sally Jameson.
The operating theatres in terms of space, and across these parts of the hospital there remains infrastructure which dates back to the 1930s. Imagine all of the advancements we have made in science, innovation, technology and medicine since this time, and yet Doncaster patients are treated in a building which has not been updated in line with this. Most worryingly, a recent report concluded that there would be an increased risk to life were a fire to occur in a Doncaster and Bassetlaw Teaching Hospital. This is due to the age and the infrastructure of the buildings and the electric works which do not meet the needs of a modern-day hospital. In spite of this catalogue of urgently needed repairs, Doncaster was not successful in its bid to secure a new hospital under the last government. Despite promises made by a string of health ministers, our application for crucial funding from the new hospitals programme was denied by the Conservatives, which was a bitter blow to the community. We now know that the funding promised for that programme never existed. It was a work of fiction. This does not just affect those hospitals which were included in the programme. The implications ripple across all hospitals who desperately need investment. In Doncaster, we are doing all we can to improve health provisions for residents. This includes the work of Mayor Ros Jones and the Trust and what they are doing to set up Health on the High Street, providing appropriate health provision in the city centre, which will not only improve and quicken the service, but also increase footfall in the High Street. The Trust has also announced in December that as part of a wider £19.8 million investment project, some refurbishment works will be completed at the Infirmary. And whilst this is welcome, it is not the overall solution. As a result of not being included in the hospital programme, the Doncaster and Bassett Law Trust have come up with a thorough and extensive on-site rebuild and refurbishment plan. The estimated cost in 2023 for the full refurbishment and new building in front of the East Ward Tower Block is up to £356 million. Cost for work on the theatres, £35 million, and a refurbishment of the Women and Children's Hospital, as was mentioned by my honourable friend, would cost up to £87 million. This would also help to generate some extra capacity, which is much needed in the current climate. This week, I visited Doncaster Royal Infirmary along with the Honourable Member for Doncaster East and the Isle of Axholme and the Minister for Secondary Care here today to show her the extent of the repair backlog and to demonstrate the urgency with which we need action. I am also grateful to the Secretary of State for Health for meeting with myself and the Right Honourable Member for Doncaster North this week to talk through the DRI refurbishment plan and the support we need to get this rebuild work done, which is also supported by the Right Honourable Member for Rawmarsh and Conisbrough. The plan lays out the details for proposed refurbishment works, not just to clear that repair backlog, but also to refurbish the hospital such that core services are protected in the future and a safe site can be ensured for a minimum of 20 years. I now ask the Government for action. I ask this Government for capital investment to clear this repair backlog and support the refurbishment and building programme so that people of Doncaster can access good quality secondary care in a safe hospital. I ask this Government to support the staff at Doncaster Royal Infirmary to do their jobs safely and effectively. And I ask this government to make sure that our hospital is fit for the future.
Minister, Karin Smyth.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I congratulate my honourable friend, the member for Doncaster Central, for securing a debate on this really important issue for her constituents. Since her election, she has been a committed champion for Doncaster Royal Infirmary, and I thank her for her tireless efforts. And she is absolutely right that the promises made by the previous government were hollow, built on sand. Even for those hospitals that made it onto the new hospital programme, the money simply wasn't there. And they let down the people of Doncaster. And on Monday, I had the privilege of visiting Doncaster Royal Infirmary alongside the Honourable Member herself and her friend, the Honourable Member for Doncaster East and Isle of Axholme, and witnessed the outstanding care staff are providing despite significant infrastructure challenges. And I totally agree with her and her comments about the situation and the pressure that staff find themselves in. Staff and patients deserve a better than a hospital prone to floods, fires and equipment failures, some of which I saw for myself on Monday. Doncaster Royal Infirmary now has a backlog maintenance bill of approximately £114 million, and a constant need for critical repairs leaves scarce resources for developing and enhancing facilities. This is the reality facing Doncaster Royal Infirmary and hospitals nationwide after years of underinvestment by the previous government. Reversing this trend and repairing and rebuilding our hospital estate is a vital part of our ambition to create an NHS fit for the future. That is why the Chancellor announced health capital spending is set to increase to £13.6 billion in 2025-26, representing record levels of capital investment into healthcare. And in that context, I am pleased that works to address some of the most pressing issues at Doncaster Royal Infirmary are underway, with £19.8 million confirmed to refurbish and relocate the critical care unit. This will deliver a safer and more accessible environment for the most vulnerable patients. Supporting projects are also underway, including relocating the same-day emergency care department, and while I accept that this by no means addresses all the issues raised today, it is nevertheless a project that will deliver much-needed safety improvements. If I can now just draw the House's attention to today's publication of NHS planning guidance, which sets out the NHS's operational capital envelopes, national capital programmes and allocation processes for 25-26. And I appreciate that this guidance will be of interest to members who wish to understand the impacts on their own constituency. But as we are particularly here to discuss Doncaster Royal Infirmary, I will focus on the funding opportunities that are available for this hospital. The Government is backing the NHS with over £4 billion in operational capital in 25-26 to empower local systems and ensure funds are allocated according to local priorities. NHS England confirmed today that South Yorkshire ICB, responsible for Doncaster Royal Infirmary, has been allocated £107 million in operational capital to spend on its capital priorities next year. In addition to the annual operational capital allocations, the Government has allocated £750 million to an estate safety fund for 25-26, which will focus on the worst safety risks across the NHS estate. South Yorkshire ICB has been allocated £19 million of this funding based on need, critical infrastructure risk, estates incidents and the recent maternity estates survey. Systems have been asked to prioritise their estate safety allocations to deliver maximum safety benefits locally. Systems plans were reviewed by NHS England and the Department of Health and Social Care to ensure national and regional priorities are addressed effectively and schemes represent value for money. In some cases, estate safety funding may also be used to initiate multi-year schemes where this represents the most effective approach. And I would strongly encourage the Trust to discuss options with the ICB to allocate some of their operational capital and estate safety funding towards repairs at Doncaster Royal Infirmary. I would also like to highlight the £1.35 billion capital funding allocated for constitutional standards recovery in 2025-26. While not targeted at repairs directly, Doncaster Royal Infirmary may be able to benefit from some of the £24 million that have been allocated to South Yorkshire ICB to support their progress towards achieving constitutional standards for my honourable friends' constituents. I would encourage the Trust to explore possible options with the ICB that could address constitutional standards recovery alongside addressing critical repairs, maximising value for money and, crucially, benefiting patients who deserve much better. The Government recognises that many hospitals across the country, like Doncaster Royal Infirmary, need funding to overhaul their digital infrastructure too. That is why we're investing more than £2 billion in NHS technology and digital in 25-26 to run essential services, increase productivity, improve cyber security, enhance patient access and ensure all trusts have electronic patient records. And I would like to thank Doncaster and Bassetlaw Trust for their cooperation in the implementation of a system-wide electronic patient record. And I would like to reassure them that this investment in digital and technology will be available for projects beyond electronic patient records. The Government understands that long-term certainty over capital funding will be essential in addressing the critical infrastructure issues at hospitals like Doncaster Royal Infirmary and across the NHS estate. Capital budgets beyond 25-26 will be determined through the current spending review, which concludes in June 2025. In conclusion, Madam Deputy Speaker, I thank the Honourable Member for raising this important issue and for her continued support, along with her colleagues, for Doncaster Royal Infirmary. I wish to extend my thanks to the staff of Doncaster Royal Infirmary for their insightful visit, for their candour and for their explanation to me about events and how they've got to this situation over recent years. And I hope to return when the new critical care unit is open. The Government is committed to repairing and rebuilding our hospital estate. It is going to take time. We've inherited a shocking situation, and I look forward to working with colleagues on this vital issue across the country in the coming years.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order.